Welcome in Joy Yang, Head of Product Management at Market Vector Indexes. Thank you so much for being with us. We were just talking about what a tough day it is for Palo Alto. Yesterday we saw Nvidia has been under major pressure. In fact, I saw at one point it was down over 100 billion. It was its biggest sell-off in market cap ever. I think it lost maybe 75 billion. But where do we stand on Nvidia, and what are you watching for today? Why is today so important?
Hi, Nicole. Thank you for having me. So it's going to be an exciting day today with Nvidia reporting earnings later on today. And as you mentioned, we've seen some price drop in Nvidia, but we should put that into context. So Nvidia still up, over 40% year to date, over 200% on a 1 year period. So the price drop that we saw yesterday, which was down over 4%, and at one point over 6%, should be put into the context of the overall story, which is that AI is still very much a focus. We've seen the big tech companies announce that they are still investing in AI and putting money into this space. So that's all positive news for Nvidia. But today we also have Fed minutes announcements, so we're watching very closely on where interest rates are going and how that will ultimately impact the wider economy.
There's even talk of a hike again.
Yes.
That was sort of something that people were looking at maybe for January. Once January passed, people weren't talking about it so much, but over the last 24 hours, I'm starting to hear the word hike again. That would be not good for tech stocks, right? Because when you start to see these hikes, it's not necessarily good news. For Nvidia, there was a time last year where we saw Nvidia do so well and the stock jumped over 20%, and that, really helped to kick off the AI excitement that was happening. Could we see 20% moves tomorrow morning?
I mean, certainly anything is possible if you look at the historic volatility of Nvidia and AI stocks overall. These are volatile stocks. They're on par with Bitcoin. And I think people probably don't realize, how volatile we're seeing some of these movements. But I would also say that AI is not like a one story. And we've been watching our AI index. And what we've seen is that we've seen stocks like Nvidia up 200% on 1 year. Stocks like microcomputers, which is up over 400% over the 1 year. But on the other hand, we also have stocks like Cerence, which is down over negative 40% on a 1 year basis. So there is a wide spread and there's a very narrow leadership, just like we've seen in the broader, wider economy.
We actually saw, I think it was Loop Capital that put a $1,200 price target. I mean, people have been getting nuts with some of the price targets. I won't say nuts, it's not for me to say. I mean, very excited, a lot of euphoria. And to you, is Nvidia still something special, something really different than the rest of the names?
I think there is a lot of, optimism about AI and what it can achieve and the productivity that it can unlock. And I think what's interesting about Nvidia is that it's actually services quite a wide segment of the market. So it's in our semiconductor index, it's in our robotics index, our metaverse index, our 5G index, and our e-gaming and esports index. So it has a lot of engines driving its performance. So I think that's a really good sign, and why people are looking at Nvidia and separating it from the wider AI space.
Is it likely that we could see that Nvidia will beat earnings? It would be the third consecutive quarter where Nvidia reports a year-over-year rise of more than 200% in the revenues. What kind of numbers? I know it's 455 and 20.3 billion, those are the estimates. But what kind of numbers do you think we could see? Do you think we could see a beat?
We could see that it is meeting expectations, outperforming expectations, but what that has on an impact to price is unknown, because how have investors already priced in? How much of that optimism is unclear at the moment, given its price performance.
So when you look at the rest of the group and a lot of the excitement that has surrounded AI, is that coming down overall, or is AI still the big story of 2024?
It is still the big story, but we have to look at some of the risks in this space, which is not just on the demand side. We know that it's not only driven by some of the users of AI now, that we see it in wide use across all industries, but we have to look at the supply side. So if we're looking at kind of global economy and the fact that this industry is heavily dependent on its global partners around the world, what will happen if supply side is, shut down, as we've seen in the pandemic? That has a clear risk on the future profitability and performance.
Yeah, we've had, when you talk about volatility, look at what's been going on with Supermicro, right? SMCI has had some wild trade swings just over the last week or so. In the meantime, you've also had regulators sort of stepping in, which chips can go abroad, and you have some of that too. Where does that factor in?
So that's all, certain investors are pricing that in, but how much are they pricing that in and looking at some of these, event prices that are hard to price in is unclear because regulators, sanctions, and economic global crisis is going to be hard for investors to factor in.
There's no doubt Nvidia has had a long track of beating the estimates. People are naming their kid Jensen. There's been a lot of excitement, right, around this name, to say the least. That being said, are you a fan of the group? Do you like Nvidia?
I'm a fan of Nvidia because of its diversified business line, but I would still caution investors try to invest in AI through a diversified approach, whether that's through diversified themes or diversified AI ecosystem. I think that's still a prudent way because unless you can time the market, you should really seek to kind of hedge the volatility around some of these stock names.
Yeah, thank you so much for being with us, Joy Yang, Market Vector Indexes. Thank you, Joy.
Thank you
so much for being with us today. A great look there